Yes, I'm now in we're calling reconvening from our earlier meeting. So will everybody please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we have one agenda modification tonight. It will be added as item 6B, a nomination for the OSBA Legislative Policy Committee. I think we're ready for spotlights.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. We have a good number of spotlights and a little out of order, some things at the end, but I'll give board direction as we move through them. So the first spotlight is going to be presented by Lillian Govis, our Director of Community Relations and Communications.
I'm having one small issue with my technology here. I'm totally not going to blame the re-imaging, so don't worry about that. But I'm very excited. Our first spotlight is our community partner of the month, and it's our Home Depot Distribution Center. So can I ask Jeff Harding, the operations manager, to come forward? And joining him will be Christy Cheever, principal of Highland Elementary. Thank you so much. You're going to go join the superintendent. Yes, and the board chair. So our schools get a lot of support from the local community, and at the start of the new school year, many of these partners step up with school supply drives to help teachers and students. Principal Christy Cheever from Highland would like to recognize one of these partners. In August, Jeff Harding, the operations manager with the Home Depot Distribution Center in Salem, called Principal Cheever offering to support Highland with a school supply drive. The Home Depot team donated much needed supplies for Highland students, including colored pencils, markers, notebooks, and backpacks. With Home Depot's help, the school supply closet at Highland Elementary started the new school year filled to the brim. Highland Elementary appreciates Jeff and everyone at Home Depot who made the school supply drive possible and looks forward to a continued partnership. Thank you, Home Depot Distribution Center, for your support, and congratulations on being named Salem-Keizer's Community Partner of the Month for September 2019.
Our next spotlight will be presented by Michael Shields, our Director of Transportation Services.
Good evening. How's everyone? It's good to see you. Chair Hein and board members and Superintendent Perry. I'd like to ask our transportation drivers to come forward and join them up front. These folks compete in what's called a safety exercise, better known in our department as a rodeo, only R-O-A-D. And it's a skills competition where they navigate cones and barrels and then take a knowledge test. And so our bus drivers won multiple times over the years, and at the 45th annual Pupil Transportation Safety Exercise held in Eugene on May 4th and June 5th, we won quite a few awards. And it's about continuous improvement and their safety-focused skills. A total of 50 participants from across the state participated, and I'd like to recognize James Schaffner, who won first place overall for the South Willamette region. Christina Davenport, who won the first place in the novice transit category for the South Willamette region. Sarah Earls won first place in the novice for the whole state. A little heavy to carry all the trophies. Other trophy winners from Salem-Keizer were second place team trophy for Jim Schaffner, Kevin Conover, and Sarah Healy. Third place team trophy were Christy Allman, Christina Davenport, and Trish Johannes. And fourth place for general transit in the state was Sarah Healy. We'd like these bus drivers to know that we're very proud of their knowledge and skills, and we want to acknowledge their contribution to safely transporting kids. And we'd also like to recognize the judges that served. We have quite a few people that volunteer. And then their head cheerleader or lead driver trainer, Lisa Puentes. They're in the audience. Thank you all, and we're always interested in hiring bus drivers.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Yeah, nice work. All right, our next spotlight is going to be presented by Carrie Calder, our literacy and language arts specialist.
My name is Kari Calder. I'm the Literacy and Language Arts Specialist in Salem-Keizer's Curriculum Department. And tonight I'm excited to introduce to you Jacob Howard. So if you could come up here. And if his parents are with him, if they could come up too. From Leslie Middle School. You could say that Jacob has a way with words. After winning the Salem-Keizer District Spelling Contest last April as a 5th grade student at Candelaria, Jacob went on to win the Marion County Regional Contest in May. That qualified him for the Oregon Statewide Spelling Championship at the Oregon State Fair in Salem on August 31st. Challenged by words such as appraisal and symbolize, Jacob won 2nd place in the contest and received a prize of $50. A total of 56 of the best spellers from 27 Oregon counties competed in the event in the elementary school, middle school, and high school divisions. Jacob is no stranger to success at the statewide spelling contest. He placed 3rd in the state in 2017 and tied for 1st place in 2018. Congratulations on your success, Jacob. We're proud of you, and we know that you'll continue to do big things in the future. Have fun in middle school and keep building that vocabulary.
All right, our next spotlight is going to be presented by Principal Rob Schoper of McKay High School.
Would my McKay staff come on up here, please? All the McKay staff who were involved today. Kenny, Dwight, Renee, Ricardo, Jenna, Delia, good timing. Chairman Hyen, Board Directors, and Superintendent Perry, I'm Principal Rob Schoper from McKay High School, and in a few moments we will be presenting a very special spotlight on success. We are about to award 8 high school diplomas to 8 new graduates. These students worked through August in McKay's credit recovery program and earned the credits they need to graduate as part of the class of 2019. Before presenting these diplomas, I'd like to take a moment and recognize the teachers, the mentors, the administrators who helped these students reach their goals. This was our grad team this summer at McKay High School. I'd like to recognize our teachers, Tara Schiffer, English, Jenna Kirka, Science, Dan Larson, Health, Social Studies, English. Our support team, Patty Rodriguez, Kenny Ramirez, Delia Salstrom, Dwight Robertson, and Rosma Wasi. And our administrator team, Renee Queering, Jeremy Kelly, Miranda Crines, Wendy Stradley, and Ricardo Larios. In a moment, Mr. Kelly's going to come and he's going to present and read the names of our students who earned their diplomas. But I have to say, the students earning diplomas tonight worked very hard over this summer. They never gave up and put in effort needed to achieve this important accomplishment, supported by a very terrific and committed McKay team. As principal, I want to thank each of you for your work and your sacrifices this summer. It means a lot. So, we're proud of you guys, okay?
guys stay.
Chair Hyan, Board Directors, and Superintendent Perry. I'm Jeremy Kelly, Assistant Principal at McKay High School. It's my privilege tonight to present our McKay August graduates. Graduates, when you hear your name, please come forward to receive your diplomas. Ruth Langmore. Misael Manzano Constantino. Antonio Cedillo. Asher Padilla Esperanza. Jamaica Jackson. Esperanza Martinez. Alejandra Cuesta Meraz. Angel Hans Root. And one more time, because he just got here, Misael Manzano Constantino. Okay, if we could get a group shot with everybody. Families who joined our graduates this evening, please come forward for a picture. Please join me in congratulating all of our McKay High School graduates this evening. Thank you. Yeah, families are welcome to come up and take pictures, please. And all of the graduates.
Uh-huh. He's a photographer. Yeah. With me?
Could we get all of the graduates and family members in one big picture, please? I'm gonna get over there and we'll take a big picture.
I think it's great. This is more fun. It's a little,
Okay, we've got Rita Glass is the only one for the agenda items. Okay. We do have several that are coming in on the agenda. Okay, this is.
Okay, McKay graduates, let's take this to the hallway.
I know. I know. It's, yeah. Next year. Well, 1 year at a time. Thank you.
I know.
Yeah, nice work.
So funny.
We did it. We did it with them. Right. Rob will keep it going.
During board activity, are you going to talk about that meeting with?
I'm ready.
you can do that.
Okay.
I probably won't say anything. It's probably like between this one and the last meeting, they're all blending together. So that's fine. Go ahead. You can just say who else was there.
Thank you, Renee.
Start at this end.
It's all good.
Okay, wow, that was exciting and really great to see all those graduates here tonight. We're now going to have public comment for agenda items. This section of the public comment is for addressing agenda items only. When you come to the podium, please state your name, city of residence, and the agenda item you're addressing for the record. Please remember each speaker has 3 minutes and the timer will beep when your time has expired. We want to hear from you, but we ask that you please respect the time limit and speak with courtesy and consideration of the board and the audience. So the first person is Rita Glass.
Good evening, Chairperson Hyen and board members. My name is Rita Glass, and I'm here to speak tonight on agenda item 6A, the Hispanic Heritage Month and Welcome Week proclamation. I speak as the president of ASCII-SP and also as a Latina woman in the community of Salem. I am very honored that you take this time to acknowledge the contributions that our Latino, Hispanic, Latinx community has made not only in the Salem community, but in the United States, and that we honor our students and our families. And as you know, 40% of our students are recognized as Hispanic or Latino, and 14%, which I'm very proud to say I am one of those staff members. And so I thank you for acknowledging our contributions, taking this seriously to make sure that all sites, including not only school sites, are welcoming and honor every person that walks through that door. And I also hope that each and every one of you, including staff, will take a chance to go out and visit and see what our students are doing during the Welcome Week of this Proclamation Month. So again, I'm very proud to be a part of that, as we saw our wonderful students of color being honored to make it down to their diploma. So I thank you for that and your committed efforts in making proclamations to honor all our groups. Especially this has a very special place in my heart, as I'm part of that community. So again, I thank you, and I honor you for continuing to do that. And again, I look forward to the day where this just becomes a part of who we are, and we don't have to proclaim a month for every different group. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Rita. So do I have a motion to approve the proclamation? And then I'll have you read it after.
Oh.
Do I have a motion to approve the proclamation? Satya,
I support.
you make a
Yeah,
motion?
Do I make
Okay.
a motion?
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Jesse, would you like to read the proclamation in English, please?
I'm ready. All right, so I'm going to be reading the Hispanic Heritage Month and Welcoming Week proclamation. Whereas Salem-Keizer Public Schools recognizes that Hispanic and Latinx people contribute to our nation's success in extraordinary ways. They serve in the military and as its educators, attend schools across America, and strengthen the economy. And whereas the Latinx heritage of the United States extends over 5 centuries, and whereas Spanish, Mexican, and indigenous cultures were established in this region before Oregon obtained statehood, and whereas the United States has a centuries-old tradition of welcoming immigrants, which has given us a tremendous advantage over the rest of the world, and our board affirms that tradition. And whereas the Salem-Keizer Hispanic and Latinx community has the same dreams, values, trials, and triumphs of all people, and they show the same grit and determination that have carried us forward for centuries. And whereas 40% of our students and 14% of our staff identify as Hispanic. And whereas the school board is committed
to creating pathways to grow opportunities for Hispanic employees to have more equitable representation. And whereas the school board supports providing opportunities for our Hispanic, Latinx, and immigrant students to partner and celebrate their cultures through Movimiento Estudiantil Chicano de Aztlán clubs. I'm in Spanish class now, so I'm working on it. Whose motto is Unity Makes Strength. And whereas our schools honor and preserve the linguistic and cultural assets of students through enrichment programs, such as our dual language, heritage Spanish courses, and advanced placement courses that help the development and enrich the diverse backgrounds of our heritage Spanish speakers, while exposing non-Spanish speakers to diverse, multilingual, and multicultural perspectives. And whereas our community is strengthened by the support and advocacy from organizations like the Salem-Keizer Coalition for Equality and the Pineros y Campesinos Unidos del Noroeste, or PACUN. And whereas inclusion is a core value of our district, and the school board has a responsibility to oppose the systemic racism towards Hispanics, Latinx, and immigrant people in Oregon, which perpetuates high rates of poverty and income inequality, exacerbating disproportionate health, education, and social crises. And whereas the school board has affirmed its position of being a safe and welcoming school district, and whereas at no time in our community's history has the need to work together been more necessary, and it's important that its residents of Salem and Keizer join in a spirit of welcoming to embrace the talents and contributions of all residents, and whereas the school board commits to creating successful educational outcomes for our Hispanic, Latinx, and immigrant students. Now, therefore, the Salem-Keizer School District Board of Directors proclaims September 15th to October 15th to be Hispanic Heritage Month, and September 13th to the 22nd to be Welcoming Week, and encourages all members of our community to join in celebrating our Hispanic and immigrant students.
Thank you, Jesse. And in Spanish.
Considerando que las escuelas públicas de Salem-Keizer reconocen que las personas hispanas y latinex contribuyan el éxito de nuestra nación de manera extraordinaria, presentan servicios en el ejército y como educadores, asistan a las escuelas a todo largo, a ancho de los Estados Unidos y fortalezan la economía. Además, considerando que la presencia de la herencia latinex en los Estados Unidos se prolonga a lo largo de más de 5 siglos. Además, considerando que las culturas española, mexicana y indígena se establecieron en esta región antes de que Oregon obtuvo la condición de Estado. Además, considerando que los Estados Unidos cuenta con una tradición centenaria de acogida a los inmigrantes, lo que nos ha otorgado una enorme ventaja sobre el resto del mundo. De igual manera, la Junta Directiva Escolar ratifica esta tradición. Además, considerando que, al igual que todas las personas, la comunidad hispana latinex de Salem-Keizer albergan los mismos sueños, valores, retos y triunfos, muestra la misma determinación que nos impulsa a seguir adelante a través de los siglos. Además, considerando que el 40% de nuestros estudiantes y el 14% de nuestro personal se identifica como hispanos. Además, considerando que la Junta Directiva Escolar se compromete a abrir los caminos para la creación de oportunidades de crecimiento y que los empleados hispanos cuentan con una representación más equitativa. Además, considerando que la Junta Directiva Escolar brinda oportunidades para que nuestros estudiantes hispanos, latinex y inmigrantes se unifican y celebran sus culturas, a través de los clubes del movimiento estudiantil chicano de Aztlán. Suyo lema es la unión hace la fuerza. Además, considerando que nuestras escuelas honran y preservan el patrimonio lingüístico y cultural de los estudiantes a través de los programas de enriquecimiento, tales como el doble idioma, cursos de herencia hispana y de colocación avanzada, los cuales fomentan el desarrollo y enriquecen la diversidad de la herencia del patrimonio cultural de nuestros hispanohablantes. Y del mismo modo, exponen a los estudiantes no hispanohablantes a diversas perspectivas multilingües y multiculturales. Además, considerando que nuestra comunidad se fortalece por el apoyo y la protección de organizaciones como la Coalición por la Igualdad de Salem-Keizer y de Pineros y Campesinos Unidos del Noreste, o PCUN. Además, considerando que la inclusión es el valor principal de nuestro distrito y la Junta Directiva Escolar tiene la responsabilidad de oponerse a racismo sistemático en torno a los hispanos, latinex y personas inmigrantes de Oregon, ya que lo anterior perpetúa las altas tasas de pobreza y desigualdad de ingresos, agravando de manera desmurada las crisis de salud educativa y social. Además, considerando que la Junta Directiva Escolar ha ratificado su posición de ser un distrito escolar seguro y acogedor. Además, considerando que la historia de nuestra comunidad, la necesidad de trabajar juntos nunca había sido más indispensable. Y es importante que los residentes de Salem-Keizer se unan al espíritu de bienvenida y acogen los talentos y las contribuciones de todos los residentes. Además, considerando que la Junta Directiva Escolar se compromete a la creación de resultados educativos exitosos para nuestros estudiantes hispanos, latinex y inmigrantes. Por medio de la presente, el Consejo Administrativo del Distrito Escolar de Salem-Keizer proclama el 15 de septiembre al 15 de octubre el mes de herencia hispana y del 13 al 12 de septiembre la Semana de Bienvenida, y exhorta a todos los miembros de nuestra comunidad a unificarse para conmemorar a nuestros estudiantes inmigrantes e hispanos.
I'll make sure we got a picture too. You can jump in there. Spanish and a version. English version and a Spanish version.
Do you want both of them?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So my name is Montserrat Hernandez Escobar, and I am the current 2019 to 2020 Mecha president. And I just want to thank you on behalf of our entire Mecha Club, the board and the committee. Thank you very much for the words and the support. We really appreciate it. We're looking forward to an amazing year helping our community, and we're very excited. Thank you.
Oh, what? Yes.
Mi nombre es Osvaldo Guzmán, soy el vicepresidente del Club de Mecha y asisto a la escuela de North Salem High School, y nomás les queremos dar las gracias por tomar nuestra cultura y hacernos bienvenidos a este lugar. Muchas gracias de parte de Mecha. No, sorry, yeah, it's true.
Mi nombre es Francisco Pacheco. Soy uno de los miembros de Mecha y solamente quiero decirle muchas gracias, ya que hicieron que Mecha no formara solamente un club, hicieron que formara casi una familia. Y el apoyo que nos están dando es la verdad lo más sagrado, lo más importante que hemos tenido recibido. Gracias.
Does anybody else want to speak? Go ahead.
There's nobody else. I think we're good.
We're good. You're good? Okay, thank you very much. Next, we have the approve of the National Preparedness Month proclamation. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve it.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? Paul?
I would like to hear the proclamation before I vote on it.
Okay.
So, just a point of order. Thank you.
We've done them both ways. I don't know what's the right way. Okay, Danielle, would you go ahead and read it, please?
Okay. Whereas National Preparedness Month, occurring annually in September, creates an ideal opportunity and reminder for every resident of Salem and Keizer to prepare their homes, businesses, and communities for any type of emergency, including natural and man-made disasters. And whereas experts agree it is only a matter of time until a full-scale earthquake will occur along the Pacific coastline, with a magnitude large enough to cripple infrastructure in the Willamette Valley, leaving many roads impassable. And whereas grocery stores only have about a 3-day supply of food on their shelves, most, if not all, utilities will be shut down or disabled, and only food, water, and medication people may have for weeks is what they have in their homes. And whereas first responders will be overwhelmed with the needs of the community and may not even be able to get to their place of employment. Whereas Salem-Keizer Public Schools wants to ensure our students and families, staff, and community are prepared in case of emergency, and therefore has established programs and devoted funding towards that goal. Our schools participate in emergency preparedness, including fire and earthquake drills and participation in the Great Oregon Shakeout. Our district makes safety a priority and has a district-level emergency operations plan in place. $67 million of the 2018 bond program is designated to address areas rated very high risk for earthquake collapse with design additions constructed to meet reoccupancy standards. Whereas Salem-Keizer Public Schools supports the Federal Emergency Management Agency motto, "Be prepared, not scared," and encourages people to be ready to be self-sufficient for a minimum of 2 weeks. Now, therefore, the Board of Directors of Salem-Keizer Public Schools proclaims September 2019 as National Preparedness Month and calls upon our community to support emergency preparedness for themselves, their families, and community.
Thank you, Danielle. Any discussion? No? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? I always forget to vote. I'm an aye. Next, we have the memorandum of agreement relating to the creation of a development council to form a continuum of care collaborative governance structure for Miriam and Polk County region. Christy, do you have any updates on that?
Yeah, I do. I just want to highlight a couple things. And then Sean O'Day from the Council of Governments is in the audience tonight. So if there are some specific questions that I can't answer, he'll come up to the podium and answer them. Yep. Yeah, we talked about it for a minute after. So, and also if I miss anything that you want to be sure to highlight. Couple things. Page 2 is the purpose. And the purpose of the agreement is to create a collaborative governance structure called the Development Council that will oversee and manage the development of a continuum of care. So this is just a first step towards getting to a continuum of care, and this is the development of the Governance Council. Another issue that came up was about what happens if this isn't the work that we want us to be doing. We do have a 30-day out in this memorandum of agreement, even though it's only to year agreement. And then missing from your original packet was the table of financial contributions, and it is at your place tonight to include the financial commitment for Salem-Keizer. And with that, then I'll open it up for questions.
I have a question.
Okay.
So with a 30-day out, would we really know within 30 days whether we'd want to?
Any time within the 2-year time period, we can give 30 days
Oh,
notice.
give 30 days
Sorry, I
notice.
said it
Okay,
incorrectly.
Okay, great. Thank you. Is any other? Danielle?
No, I don't have a question.
Jesse?
Yeah, because I remember our original issue was this, I believe, was that this is a 2-year agreement, but we have to approve it each year. And is this 5,000 amount, is this set for both years?
Yeah, I'll let Sean come up.
Chair, hi, and members of the board. I'm Sean O'Day. I'm the Executive Director of the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments. And as a Council of Governments, we're helping to facilitate the units of local government in our region that are trying to set this up. So I have some familiarity with it today, and I think that's why I was asked to be here to answer some questions. So with respect to the financial contribution, as you can see on the table, right now the parties that are driving this effort really have not identified what that second year is going to be. I think it's yet to be determined. I think for most jurisdictions, you're going to be looking at a very similar, if not comparable, contribution. Right now, I think they've identified 5,000 from the school district. So I think it'd be reasonable to assume, but it would just be an assumption that they'd be asking for another 5,000 in year 2. And if I can kind of anticipate another question, which is why are the parties looking to raise this money, and how's it going to be used, and why is it a 2-year agreement versus a 1-year agreement? And it goes to what the overall effort is trying to achieve. I believe that many of you had a presentation by one of our contractors that have been working on this issue as to what we're trying to do, which is to reestablish within our 2-county region, both Polk and Marion County, a continuum of care, which is a federally designated entity that makes you eligible for federal dollars that relate to homelessness. Back in 2011, we used to have just a 2-county continuum of care, but decided, because of the administrative costs associated with running that we would join what was then known as the balance of state. And over the course of about the last decade, we've actually seen our per capita allocation go down from what was roughly about $1 million back in 2011 to today we're sitting at about $600,000. Which means that per capita, we're getting about $550 per homeless individual, whereas comparing with Lane County, where they're sitting at about $2,500 per homeless individual, we've seen our region lag behind. So the effort is to reestablish this continuum of care and to staff it up. And part of the commitment that the organizations that are leading this effort have made is to have our nonprofits that are currently receiving those dollars to remain whole. And how these two concepts tie together is that ordinarily the way that a continuum of care would be funded is that you set up your organization, you hire your staff. You have to have some money at the outset, of course, to be able to do that, and that's what the first-year contribution would do. But then in subsequent years, generally speaking, you take an administrative fee off of the allocations that are coming in for the programs. Again, the jurisdictions putting this effort together have made a commitment to the nonprofits that they are not going to do that, at least in the first couple of years. Because the amount of money that we're receiving in our region is so low, the governments that are leading this effort have said, we'll step up and we will fund the operation for the first couple of years until it's healthy and we receive additional dollars into our region, at which time then we'll look to take an administrative fee to pay for those operations. So that's the reason why it's a 2-year agreement.
Good. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Sharon, did you still have a question?
Just real quick, can you remind us how many students we have that are considered to be homeless or at risk?
I think we are at about 1,100 students that are navigating homelessness.
Thank you.
Kathy?
So who in the organization or what body within the organization is going to determine how those funds are spent?
That's a great question, Director. So we're looking at a multi-stage process. The first stage is to develop this coordinating council that will lead the effort in basically putting together the application to the federal government to reconstitute our continuum of care. It gets a lot more complicated than that. We're going to have to decide what our governance structure is going to look like. We're going to have to decide what the committee structure is going to look like and what the vetting process is going to look like for applicants. Essentially, what a continuum of care will do is it'll serve as an agent of the federal government in receiving applications from the nonprofits that would like to receive those dollars, run it through a prioritization process, and then submit that up to the federal government for funding. So to answer your question, initially, the dollars that you're putting in will just go to administrative expenses. Those decisions will be made by the coordinating council as they go about deciding how this entity is going to be formed, what it's going to look like, what its staffing structure will look like. But then in subsequent years, as far as how when the program dollars come in, those will ultimately be decided by the federal government based upon the local prioritization process that we use through the continuum of care. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but it doesn't sound too local to me. It sounds like we're going to make this work on federal dollars. And the board that you're talking about, our primary care is for children. And I realize when we help parents that are struggling, that does help children. But I would hope it would go in the direction that we would manage to get children in the district some of that money that we're giving to your organization.
I understand. Yeah, so, again, full disclosure, that initial $5,000 is going to go to seed money to set up the organization that can then compete to get those dollars to fund the programs that you're talking about. And again, it's only because the local governments that are behind this effort have made a pledge to the nonprofits that are currently serving that community, the homeless community and those children of those families, not to take any money that they're currently receiving to help stand up an administrative structure. But ultimately, if we do this right as a region in our prioritization process and working with nonprofits, we'll be able to show how we can coordinate efforts across our region, which then makes us competitive for more federal funding that we can then put into those programs to serve those children and families in need.
Paul?
Sean, my question is, on your chart, do you have a copy of the attachment?
I do.
I'm curious as to how these population numbers were derived. Because for Salem-Keizer schools, you have 19,557. Where did that number come from, since we have 42,000 students?
Right.
And I'm just curious as to where that came up. So, that's the first question.
Sure, happy to answer that question. So the numbers on the chart, the committee that is putting this together asked the Council of Governments to provide information on how we do our dues structure, which is based upon a modified population estimate. And so as you correctly note, it's not true population figures. And that was kind of the starting point for how they were going to assess the various groups that were willing to participate. As you can also see in the chart, not every unit of local government in our region is participating in this. Right. This has been an effort that's largely been led by Salem, Keizer, Marion County, Monmouth and Independence, and now most recently Polk County. And so those organizations, which then invited some nonprofits to the table in developing the application as well as the school district because of the interest that you have in this issue. And they tried to find a contribution that would kind of make sense. As one member of the council put it, what we're trying to build is a coalition of the willing, and we're seeking money that folks are willing to put forward and not based upon a strict formulaic a methodology of applying population. But that is where they started, and you're seeing the remnant of that in that chart that you have in front of you.
So have other school districts been touched with this? Have they been approached at all?
They have not.
Is there any plan to approach them?
So we had a conversation early on in this effort about having Yamhill, which is also part of our Council of Governments, participate in this. They elected not to.
Okay, thank you. I have one more question, but not for you. And it's my understanding that the superintendent plans on participating in this as our representative?
Currently, that's the direction for the Development Council portion of it only.
So 6 months?
4 months.
4 months?
The intent is to have an application ready by November and to have all the entities that would be impacted by that on board by December.
Okay, thank you.
Danielle?
My question's for Christy. I'm curious how this project is going to support the current projects the district has in place for students that are experiencing homeless and or are considered homeless?
So if we can get more dollars into the region, that will help families, which will in turn help kids that are navigating homelessness. I do know that I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but there are a number of youth serving services in Marion County, but not enough for our students that are navigating homelessness. So the goal would be that if there are more dollars in the region for programs, that would help youth as well.
Okay, so Sean, for this continuum of care and the direction that you're going, it doesn't seem clear to me when I read through what the goals of it are, and with the fact that there are many programs in the community, is it an initiative of this collaboration to not reinvent the wheel and or not create duplication of service to where everyone's working together and pooling money together?
Yes, that is a big part of it. So I'm trying to think, there's a lot of different ways in which to answer your question. I think the way I'm going to answer it is from the perspective of the federal government. So when the federal government, HUD in particular, established the Continuum of Care program many decades ago, initially it allocated funds on a pro rata basis, the number of homeless individuals within the Continuum of Care's region. You then got that money in the Continuum of Care, then decide how they were going to spend that amount within their region. HUD's methodology and thinking on this issue has evolved tremendously over the last couple of decades, particularly in the last 10 years. Today, the formula by which HUD uses to allocate funding to a continuum of care is based upon the degree in which the nonprofits within that region are coordinating to ensure that there are no gaps and there are no overlaps. And the more coordination that you can demonstrate as a continuum of care, then you become eligible for more funding for programs within your region. Right now, to put this into context, and one of those previous figures that I gave you, right now we're part of the balance of state continuum of care, which stretches every place from Astoria, Oregon to Jordan Valley, Oregon. If you've ever been to Jordan Valley, you know it's quite a drive. And if you can imagine trying to coordinate nonprofit response to homelessness across that wide of a geographic expanse, practically you can't do it. It's why our balance of state continuum of care has scored very poorly in recent years in the HUD new formula. And it's why on a pro rata basis, we're getting about $550 per homeless individual compared to the Lane Continuum of Care, which is getting $2,500 because it's a smaller geographic region, and they are doing exactly what HUD has asked, which is that coordination to ensure that there are no gaps or overlaps on the nonprofits. So the strategic objective behind this initiative and these local governments that are driving this is they're saying we can do a better job. We know we can do a better job in our region by pulling those nonprofit service providers together, showing how we're working in a coordinated effort across a continuum of care, hence the name of this federal entity, from anywhere from the housing to mental health services to addiction services, that if we can show that we're coordinating across that continuum, then we will see more dollars that can go into programs and serve the kids within the district as well as the families in need in our region.
Okay, thank you.
Satya? Thank you very much. I have two quick questions. So if this continuation of care council, will our Salem-Keizer School Board have a voting member to decide on the priorities? Let's say families who have children in school who are experiencing housing challenge, so that we can also participate in your priority and that council's priority. The second question is, when I see the list of in attachment 1, I'm not sure which represents mental health and addiction services and which nonprofit are we planning to include, so that it's a real comprehensive continuum of care, so that the housing resources can be as one-stop shopping for some of the families who are kind of having a pooling of adverse experiences.
Both great questions. So as to the first question, whether you would have a voting member of the board, the governing body that makes up this continuum of care, that is one of the decisions that the Development Council is going to be making. I think it's a safe assumption, though, that the answer to that question is yes. The discussion surrounding this effort thus far has been to set up our regional continuum of care, modeled very much on some of the other programs that we have within the Council of Governments, such as our Metropolitan Planning Organization, or Economic Development District, where we take members of our elected members of our member governments and have them create a separate governing body that does the actual work under that particular federal program. Now, saying that, I just want to say at the outset that thus far as a Council of Governments, we've only facilitated and hosted this conversation. It is yet to be determined where this entity is going to actually rest. It could be with the Council of Governments, or it could be with another government entity such as Northwest Senior and Disability Services, for example. That's another one of the issues that the Development Council will have to wrestle with and figure out. But again, right now, I think it's safe to say yes, because what these units of local government that are leading this effort have wanted is to have more local government voice in how these dollars are going to be spent, and how, more appropriately, how we're competing for those dollars on the federal level. With respect to your second question as to the makeup of the Development Council, and as you noted, that it's lacking mental health providers, it's also lacking other social service providers in our community, and that is very much by design. The reason for that is that under HUD's rules, those that are making up the decision-making body of your continuum of care cannot be direct beneficiaries of those funds. And otherwise you have a conflict of interest that would prevent them from being able to rank and vote on such matters. And so you'll see both in the makeup of the Development Council, as well as I think the work that they're going to do in the next couple of months, what you're going to see is a predominantly government body. It will have some nonprofit representatives, but generally from umbrella organizations such as the United Way, which you can see is one of the nonprofits in this particular Development Council. And again, that's by design, just so that those that otherwise might be eligible for those dollars don't make themselves ineligible by serving on the governing body.
Thank you.
Jesse?
So will United Way and Union Gospel Mission both be ineligible by serving on it?
If they are part of the governing body, then yes, they would not be able to vote on their own applications. Yeah.
Christy, do you have any final?
No, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right,
Is there a
thank you.
motion?
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the memorandum of agreement relating to the creation of a development council for continuum of care collaborative governance structure for the Marion and Polk County region.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Paul. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Abstain? Thank you. It passes with one opposition. Now we have an agenda modification that we talked about earlier regarding OSBA Legislative Policy Committee. Jesse?
Yes, Madam Chair, I move that the Salem-Keizer School District Board of Directors nominates Director Satya Chandagiri for the Oregon School Board Association's Legislative Policy Committee.
Is there a second?
Second.
Danielle seconded. Is there any discussion? Sean?
I just have a question, I guess. What does that entail? What will you be, so it's the legislative policy?
Yeah, can I speak to that?
Actually, I'd like, since we're nominating Satya, I'm curious.
Go
What
ahead,
do-
Satya.
What does that entail?
Thank you. So Oregon School Board Association has a legislative policy committee which works very closely with the Oregon School Board Association, the Board of Directors. So whenever the legislative concepts, legislation which pertains to schools and school districts come up, this body gets to have a discussion with other representatives from the region. I believe every county has a representation. So that way, we can come back and report to the board what has been discussed, what are some of the priorities, what are some of the emerging issues which is going to have a bearing on us. So this person will be a liaison between that. It'll give us a chance to start thinking proactively for our school districts so that we can start making plans. If we start taking some initiatives which are cutting edge, which is going to be helpful for the others, we may be in a position to go back to that and share that these are some of the things that we are doing. And that way we can also be of help other districts which may not have as many resources as we have. So that is one role I envision that I'm going to be playing. we have some very important big ticket items, that's what I want to call it, the Student Success Act, which is really a huge opportunity for us, where it's really an interface between learning on one hand and the health and the parameters on the other hand, because they're kind of like the two sides of the same coin. So in that way, I would like to see how I can realize on and try to kind of make sure that we are able to do the right things when this Student Success Act comes down our way. Another area I really would like to kind of be working and trying to understand and try to ensure that equity, the way we kind of implement and what are the outcome parameters we would like to think in our district. So we can also be in the discussion with Oregon School Board Association and see what kind of legislation that may come up down the road and how it's going to benefit us, because we have a large share of emerging bilingual students proportionately. As our population is going to grow, that is going to be the big need for our community. And we need to start thinking proactively so that when our students do well and have good outcome, it is in the national interest, it's in our state's interest that everybody succeeds. So that's how I plan to use this opportunity. I don't know if I answered you.
You did, but I guess
You have another question, go ahead.
I guess it's a question, kind of a comment. So if it's legislative policy, I guess we would want to know what's being presented on our behalf before it's presented, or just kind of be kept in the loop of what, like you said, what are the emerging issues? But if we're going to have a representative begin speaking about what our priorities are as a district, I'd want to.
We'd better know what those are,
Yeah,
right? As a
yeah.
group.
So I appreciate where you might be headed with that, but I think we would want to know what those conversations are going to be before they happen.
I agree. Any other comments? Jesse?
Yeah, so I've been on the Legislative Policy Committee for the past 2 years with OSBA. And the main role is, because OSBA has their lobbyists, right? And the OSBA represents, it's the Oregon School Boards Association. So they represent all of the school boards in the state of Oregon. And so what they do is they pick from each region. School boards elect a school board member to represent on the Legislative Policy Committee, into which when they get together once a year, and they vote on what OSBA's direction is going to be. So for example, this last year, our big conversation was around, one's the Student Success Act, school funding, and class sizes. Those were the things that people found very important. And so it gives direction for OSBA as to what they're going to lobby for and what they're going to be fighting for this next year. And so that's the big role. And as you're serving on that, you're not speaking on behalf of the board, but so for example, when Satya's on it, he's not going to be Salem-Keizer representative on that. He's going to be Dr. Satya, the school board member, not speaking on behalf of us, if that makes sense. And then we also have to approve those. So when we approve OSBA's legislative policy every year, that's what we're approving, is those.
And I remember seeing emails from OSBA talking about, what those proposals are, and actually giving all of us an opportunity to weigh in our thoughts on it, as I recall. So, any more questions? Paul?
Jesse, is it an automatic that if we nominate somebody and elect them, that they serve on this committee?
It's not. So
Okay, so what's the process, please?
Sure. So yeah, we are electing him to be a nominee. And so other school districts could also elect a nominee. So this is mainly Marion County for the most part. So like, for example, it includes Woodburn. I think Canby is included.
Central.
Yeah, like Cascade School District, Central, all of the surrounding school districts in our local area. And so they technically could elect their own person. And so one of them will probably elect somebody. And so Satya will be running against whoever their elected person is. And then there will be a final vote. And I believe the meeting for that is
September 26th or 27th or something like that.
that one.
Thank you for that question, Paul. Are there any other comments, questions for the good of the order? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? It passes unanimously. You're our nominee.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to the consent calendar. Is there anything anybody wants to pull? Paul?
I move that we accept the consent calendar as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay, moving on to readings. There are none. Reports. Christy?
All right, this is executive limitation report number 4, relationship with staff and volunteers. I'm just going to do a couple highlights. And for new board members or board members who have some more seniority, anytime you want to see any of the policies that are referenced, if you just let me know, I would be sure that you had copies of those and could access those. So this is the 4th of 12th monitoring reports, and it's the one with the relationship with staff and volunteers, and relationship and shall not cause or allow conditions, procedures, actions, or decisions which are unlawful, unethical, inequitable, unsafe, disrespectful, disruptive, undignified, or a violation of board policy. So I'm just going to highlight a few things. Number 2, fail to establish expectations to ensure an organizational culture that conforms with values of open and honest communication. You can read all those. And I just want to remind you that we do have ongoing meetings, joint labor management meetings, weekly in some cases. We also have communication groups with both our licensed and our classified employees, and we're just gearing up for those right now. And we also do provide mentoring to our teachers and our administrators in their first and second year of work. One thing to note is, and I noted this in the budget process last year, is that we were still struggling with the mentor grant, and that is still up in the air, and we are keeping our mentor program standing. And that's important because I honestly don't know exactly where that's going to head. So I may be coming back to you with a contingency request around the mentor program. That program especially is critical, especially for our beginning teachers. Took a little bit of a risk there, and we're watching that unfold. Then I want to go on to number 6. Well-defined system to recruit and select the most highly qualified and best suited candidates for an employment. And we've done some new things this year. So I'm going to go down to the bullets. We have the signed MOU with Ask ESP outlining incentive bonuses for new and current bus drivers. And I did want to say thank you to Rita and her team for their work on that, because it was, it seems straightforward, but it was a complicated issue that they really dug in on. So thank you, Rita, for that. Hiring of diverse teachers on special assignment as a licensed recruiter. So we have a new licensed recruiter who is a Latino teacher of ours who will be helping us with recruiting. We've also done some refinement of the diversity support program for aspiring teachers and administrators. We're looking at an aspiring administrator cohort program. And then we've implemented some changes to district policies related to the safety and security of student, teachers, and employees. And coming soon is a new updated application management system. So we didn't want to do that in the middle of the hiring season, so that'll be coming on in the next couple months as soon as hiring settles down. On the subject of hiring, John, I just want to do a shout out to your department, who at 6 o'clock on Friday night before school started was still making offers and doing background checks. I think there was some work through the weekend. I had an opportunity to talk to one of the members there, and she's like, I'm just not going to look at my email because I've got to get these reference checks and offers out, because we've got to have the right teachers in front of the classroom. And I just appreciated her really understanding of why she was there and doing and the importance of what she did that impacted student achievement. So John, thank you to your department. near the bottom of this page around written policies and procedures, you do know we were working hard to figure out if we could find an updated way to do evaluations that was within a very specific law related to teacher evaluations. Right now, that committee has worked to see if they could figure out a better that would be worth changing, and they just haven't yet. So that's something that we don't know that we have a better option for, especially within that legal requirement related to how we evaluate our educators. And then number 9, fail to honor the terms of negotiated agreements. As a reminder, we have a collective bargaining agreement with our licensed staff until 2021 and with our classified staff till 2023. And anytime there are violations, we have a process that we work through with them on that. And then finally on the last page, and I'm not 100% sure why we had all of these under pending or updated, because we have done some revisions to our criminal history, and I believe we actually reported on this one last year. HUM's A021 was adopted in September of 2018. As I look back at it today. But we have had a number of new legal changes related to our criminal history checks. And we've also added volunteers and contractors to sometimes we will need to do fingerprinting on specific volunteers and contractors, especially in personal services contract. So with that, I'll open it up to questions. And again, if I can't answer them, I'll get them to you. And if you want copies of any of our policies, I'd be happy to get you those as well.
Danielle.
Let me get back there. Number 5, where it says volunteer criminal history is checked through multiple criminal history databases. Can you send me the definition of what the district considers a volunteer to be? And then what criminal background checks they are subjected to and what you're looking for?
Mm-hmm. Yep. John, did you get that? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Christy? Oh, okay. Thank you, Christy. Next, we have our just our information on upcoming board and budget meetings, and that has not changed, although one of those meetings is going to be a little longer.
And that's going to be the one on the 22nd?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, on the 22nd.
October 22nd. We're going to, I think we'll start at 5, and it'll be a follow-up to the work session we had.
Okay. Now we'll move on to non-agenda item public comment. We will now hear public comment. This section of public comment is for addressing topics not related to the agenda. Please state your name, city of residence, and the topic you are addressing for the record. Each speaker has 3 minutes, and the timer will beep when your time has expired. Again, we want to hear from you, but we ask that you please respect the time limit and speak with courtesy in consideration of the board and the audience. The first person is Enrique Ruiz. Sorry, Enrique Ruiz.
Good evening, Chair Hayen, Vice Chair Lippold, the board. My name is Enrique Ruiz. I am a Northeast Salem resident, and I will be speaking about the equity lens. I am also the field and data manager at PECUN, Oregon's Farm Workers Union, and I'm also a product of the Salem-Keizer School District. I'm here to speak in strong opposition to any changes to the school district's equity lens and encourage its implementation. Nationally and locally, our communities of color are under attack, from immigration to criminal justice. Locally, we can work together to ensure the voices of the most underserved are heard in the decision-making spaces. The equity lens in our district policy is a foundational step to ensure that students that come from underserved communities are heard. However, the equity lens in our district policy is being jeopardized, simply because it's too difficult for some people to understand. In a recent work session focused on the annual review of board policy, there was a lot of discussion around the equity lens. And one of the suggestions was to completely gut it. The purpose of the equity lens is to make sure that the needs of the individual students are met so that they can succeed. Those needs include an understanding of the barriers faced by communities of color that reside within the district. The equity lens contains attainable goals for the board. It details the distinction between equity and equality that is so often distorted and used against students of color, as well as members of communities of color, and it gives a way to measure the success of the resolution. Through this resolution, the board takes a position that emphasizes the individuality of the student with a statement that stands proudly and proclaims, this commitment means that student success will not be predicted nor predetermined by characteristics such as, but not limited to, race, national origin, religion, disability, geographic location, economic circumstance, mobility, native language, sexual orientation, gender identity, or level of proficiency upon entering our schools. As a reminder, this is what the board is charged to do through the equity lens. The board will adopt an equity lens to guide decisions that come before the board, annually review the policies of the board, specifically the executive limitations and results policies, to ensure the work of the board is focused on equitable outcomes, and ensure that the communities of our students who are not achieving desirable outcomes are included in deliberations as decisions are being considered. All this cannot be condensed into one sentence or a single phrase. You know the demographics of our school district. 52% of the district is a student of color. This resolution protects all of our students. To get the resolution to operate without the guidance of its spirit is to betray the communities you serve. Since the adoption of the equity lens, the board must do a better job of implementing it. To protect our students, the action of the board must be met with intention. Anything short of that will result in the district deaf to the needs of our students and the future of our district. Today I ask you, whenever the work session is scheduled to discuss the equity lens, that you work with these words in mind.
Thank
that
you,
the importance
Enrique.
of the resolution, as well as its practice, is implemented to the highest degree. And in this process, each
Thank
of
you,
you evaluate
Enrique.
your performance.
Out of
as
respect
board
to
members.
people waiting to speak, thank you very much. We understand what you're saying. We
Sí se
hear you.
puede.
Okay, thank you very much. Casey Cunningham. Casey Cunningham. And after Casey is Raul Marquez.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Casey. I live here in Salem. I'm speaking as a member of the Salem community. Back in July, students from this district spoke to the board with power from a place of vulnerability because they don't feel that the board understands the dangers they face from systemic racism, both in the federal government and here in our community. The Safe and Welcoming Schools resolution passed last month describes the need for, quote, a culture that is safe, inclusive, welcoming, and celebrates the diversity found within our community. Tonight's proclamation on a Hispanic Heritage Month and Welcoming Week has good points in the whereas clauses, some I didn't even expect to see. But what matters is what the board is going to do about the things it recognizes as problems for students from oppressed populations. It's not a bad thing to declare a welcoming week, but what happens for the rest of the year? What is the board doing to keep systemic racism out of the school system? If the schools aren't actively against racism in all that they do, then they're tacitly upholding white supremacy. This robs students of their future. At the last work session, we heard the board talk about gutting the equity lens, as Enrique mentioned. So after hearing these students speak in July, and without having heard anything substantial to really address the specific issues that they raised, you can imagine my concern. If the effect of an equity lens is not even being felt by the students, that's no reason to destroy it. The board has a policy that says, quote, the successful high school graduate will have the knowledge and skills to do such things as develop a positive self-concept, respect for others, and healthy behavior patterns, to demonstrate civic, global, and environmental responsibility, and to recognize and value diversity among people. So what is the board doing to make sure that students are meeting those goals and not just passing tests? Without a strong focus on preparing students to be members of a diverse global community, I'm worried that inadequate policies are setting up not only a pipeline from school to prison, but a pipeline from school to the perpetuation of white supremacy. The students in the community deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you, Casey. Raul Marquez.
Good evening, Chair Hyan, Vice Chair Lippold, and board members. My name is Raul Marquez Guerrero. I am a current student at Willamette University and a proud graduate of McKay High School, class of 2018. Not too long ago, I was living and seeing firsthand the inequities within our school district. Throughout my time at McKay High School, I worked hard, but I know that there are countless other students who worked just as hard, and yet they did not get the same opportunities that I was afforded. The reality is that not all students receive the support and opportunities to meet their needs. I'm here today because it has been called to my attention that during the last work session meeting, when discussing the equity lens, it was suggested that the equity lens be completely gutted and/or shortened. The equity lens is imperative to the success of all students in the Salem-Keizer School District. The collective commitments of the equity lens adopted in 2017 states that equity will be attained when the achievements of our historically underserved students match the outcomes of students in the dominant culture, when underserved groups increase in capacity and power, and when barriers to student success have been mitigated or eliminated. So it should come as no surprise when I say that we have yet to attain equity as a school district. In order for this to happen, as a board, the equity lens needs to be meaningfully and more intentionally practiced moving forward. The equity lens ensures that necessary questions like, does this initiative align with the district mission? How does this decision build capacity and power to underserved groups? What data would we like collected to inform reflection on the effects of this decision? Are considered as part of the planning and decision-making process for new proposals and/or initiatives. The equity lens clarifies the difference between equality and equity that so often gets confused with one another. It serves as a guide for our board members to ensure that all of our students' needs are being met by setting realizable and measurable goals for policies implemented by the board. As a reminder, the board job description, last revised in 2017, states that the board will concentrate its efforts on 1, advocating on behalf of the school district, students, and the constituency it serves, and 2, interacting with students, staff, parents, and community members, both as individual members of the board and as a whole board, to gather feedback that may help guide decisions facing the board. Now, there are more areas that the board will concentrate, but y'all know that, or at least y'all should. Today, I ask that you all think about the students protected by the equity lens, to think especially about the 52% of students who are students of color in our district, to remember the importance of equity lens and understand that to navigate through the decision-making process without the equity lens is a disservice to the people you serve.
Thank you, Raul. Out of consideration, thank you. Next, we have Kate Normand. I'm not sure if I'm saying your last name right. If I didn't, I'm sorry. Kate Normand? I think.
Hello.
Is that right, Kate
Yeah,
Normand?
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct. Thank you for your time. My name is Kate Normand, and I live in Northeast Salem. When I was a kid, school worked for me. It was a system that was built for kids like me, white, cisgender, middle class, also neurotypical. The truth I learned when I got older is that the education system is not equitable. It does not work for all kids and families. The system is more difficult for students of color and low-income students to navigate and succeed within. Policies like the equity lens or guiding documents like the equity lens were created as a step toward an equitable education system in our district. It's come to my attention that at a recent work session, there was discussion around cutting down or simplifying this equity lens. The purpose of this document is to guide the decisions of this board toward developing and upholding equitable practices in the district. As you've heard and as you know, over 50% of Salem-Keizer students identify as students of color. So the question is, does this equity lens serve them as the way it is intended to? From what I've heard from students, the equity lens isn't currently working for them, but it can work if it's actually implemented. Any changes made to the equity lens should improve upon and widen its scope, not simplify or narrow it. And any changes made should involve students and families impacted most by the decisions of this board. You were elected to serve all students. As a new board, you have the opportunity to do better by them by using the equity lens to examine your current policies and listening to students. If the equity lens is used to shape board policies and decisions, we can make progress toward an equitable and just school system that works for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Javier. Javier, I see you, Javier. I'm not going to mess up your last name, okay?
That's all right. Good evening, Superintendent Perry and members of the board and community members. My name is Javier Quiroz, and I live in Northeast Salem. I'm the parent director of the parent organizing project of the Salem-Keizer Coalition for Equality. I'm also a very proud parent of five grown children who attended public schools here in Salem. I'm also a grandfather of 7 and great-grandfather of 3. I'm here tonight to ask you not to change the equity policy because 50% of our students and parents of color were so happy when equity lens was rated for the first time in our history. This document means to us that finally you care. You see us, we are not invisible anymore. The district staff is working to follow all these parts, and they do not need to change it. Otherwise, the whole community is going to be very upset, and they will let you know. This is not a reason to redo this right now. You need to take your time to learn and listen. First, we can listen first, so we can better help our students of color. Once again, please do not change it. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Javier. And Olivia Palazzo Angula. And I probably messed up your name, sorry.
Hi, good evening, Chair and Vice Chair, Superintendent, board members, and staff. Sometimes I forget how to say all that. My name is Ana Olivia Palazzo Angulo, and I'm the Executive Director of the Salem-Keizer Coalition for Equality, and my daughter just graduated from North High. This policy, just addressing, you know who you were or are when I listened to CCTV. This policy is not for you. It's not for the public to read and understand. It's a governance policy. I'm sorry. This is a policy for you, not for the public to read and understand. It's not to be made simplistic. It's for you as your governance policies. There's 13 of them, and you need to understand every single one, understand every single word, follow them. And that's why it's for you, and it's not to be rewritten and made simple. That's number one. It's not for the public. The other thing is you got stuck on the word power. It's a misunderstanding. I think you should just look at the first paragraph again. It's kind of like this: in the future, if we all attained equity, what would it look like? And it would look like the achievements of our underserved students would match the outcomes. So right now I can tell you, I'm very happy to say that back in the day when I first started this work 20 years ago, I think white kids were graduating at like 65 or 70%, and now they're like at 85, 89. I can't remember all the details, but they're in the 80s. And our Latino students were like at 45, 50, 55, something like that. And now they're at like 70 something. So these are fabulous things. The difference is the catch up. It's called the achievement gap. So I'm very happy that they're all coming up, but there's not very much catch up. We've had a little bit of success on catching up from 15 points apart to 10 points apart or such a thing. But the key is that don't be afraid when everybody else catches up, and the equity lens is to say, what do they need to catch up? So this is where equity comes in. Not everybody needs the same thing. If I'm already caught up, I don't need any extra. If somebody else isn't caught up, why? And there's a lot of investigation there. There can be home, and there can be school, and there can be community, and lots of issues, as you know, I'm sure. Then it says, when underserved groups increase in capacity and power. Well, there's such a thing called a power dynamic, and I don't know if you've heard this before, but as women, for example, before I went to college, a woman, and I'm in a group of white men that have suits on and education, I am like totally trembling, like, I don't know what, and I'm scared to even talk, So anyway, I'm going to pass this out because it's got good information. I wrote a whole bunch just to explain my thoughts, and like everyone else said, don't touch it, right?
Okay, thank you, Anna Olivia. Ross Schwarzenberger, Schwarzenruber. And then finally, Paul Crissell, you'll be next.
Good evening, Salem-Keizer School Board Chair, Directors, and Superintendent. My name is Ross Schwarzenruber. I'm a parent of 3 children in the Salem-Keizer School District. And tonight I'm offering testimony as a parent stakeholder in the Continuous Improvement Plan Needs Assessment process required for the Student Success Act Student Improvement Account grant. So according to the Student Success Act, this plan must be presented for public feedback and board approval in September and October prior to the November 1st, 2019 submission. The Continuous Improvement Plan Needs Assessment process should include parents, students, school employees, community representatives to discuss local needs and goals and intentionally reach out to students and parents of historically underserved communities. As of yet, I have not seen this done. Concerning local needs, the majority of funding should go towards hiring staff to reduce class size. Hire more teachers to satisfy the quality education model, broaden curricular options in art, music, language, PE, and engaging electives. All students should have access to licensed librarians. Hire librarians. Student health and safety are best served by trained professionals. Hire more health professionals. Hiring more teachers, librarians, and health professionals will satisfy CIP goals by reducing academic disparities and meeting students' mental and behavioral needs while providing equitable access to academic courses. Concerning outcome measurements, I would encourage the district and board to look beyond the national metrics of 9th grade on-track performance, 3rd grade reading proficiency rates, and completion rates. These national metrics rely on standardized testing, which prove unreliable in indicating student success. Similarly, data from social emotional learning and trauma-informed practices relying on faulty evidence-based research have proven unreliable indicators of student success. These are inadequate assessments for Salem-Keizer students. Consider identifying local metrics to develop applicable growth targets. Perhaps allowing 16-year-olds to vote in school board elections to increase civic engagement, or using community service hours would better serve our community. Start thinking about new metrics that can actually transform our community rather than continuing to add money to failed projects. So I look forward to seeing these ideas implemented in the September 24th board meeting, and ask for you to provide more community engagement. As an example, Eugene School District, they just put a form up on their website asking for people to submit ideas. That seems pretty inexpensive and something you guys can handle pretty quickly. You guys are pretty tech savvy. So they're going to spend about this is new money, Everyone in the audience should be concerned about this. New money, $15 million, and we want it spent on people. Thank you.
Thank you, Ross. Just for the record, the September 24th board meeting is a work session on suicide prevention. Go ahead, Paul.
Good evening. My name is Paul Crystal. I live here in, actually, Director Blassie is my zone director in South Salem. And I had the luxury, I grew up in the 1950s in upstate New York. I went to school there in pretty much all white rural area where I learned the sanitized history of this country. But we know better now. We know about the legacy of centuries of genocide against Native peoples, of racism, of oppression of working people of all colors. We know that that's part of the history of this society. New York Times in its 1619 project is really taking this issue on as it deals with chattel slavery. This legacy is deeply embedded in all of our institutions, including our schools. Whether we know it or not, whether we're aware of it, it's deeply embedded, it's there. To overcome that legacy is not a simple task of simply all of a sudden saying, well, we're going to treat everybody equally. It's over. That's not sufficient. A new book I've been reading, which I commend to you, is by Ibram Kendi from American University. He's a professor there. He runs the anti-racism program at American University. It's called How to Be the Anti-Racist. He asserts that non-racism is insufficient. Non-racism denies the ongoing impact of the deep roots of racism and oppression in our institutions. It's insufficient to simply say, we're not going to do that anymore. It takes intentional and affirmative action to undo and dismantle those legacies. The equity lens is the bare minimum for understanding. It's the minimum tool to understand the deep impacts of policy on populations to which this legacy applies. I urge you to strengthen and deepen the equity lens and to learn it deeper, compare how it's being used in other places. It's important as a very minimum step to undo this legacy. I raised 2 daughters in this school system. You know, I've spent my life in the labor movement. The labor movement's been good to me. It's moved me from working class into the upper middle class. They had all the advantage of parents who knew how to work the system. They knew how to work the system. They were seen as individuals with capacity. Many of their classmates didn't have those advantages. And those of us who had those advantages need to understand how deeply rooted these impediments and barriers are. And we need to stand up and say, we're going to use the equity lens to start to understand what we, in our childhood, were never taught. These deep legacies of racism, genocide, and oppression of working people that live deeply in our system. So please, make it stronger and deeper. Don't dismantle it.
Thank you, Paul. That's the end of our non-agenda item comments. Now it's time for our board activity reports. Paul? Daniel?
I have a couple things. On August 21st, myself, Director Hyen, and Director Chandra Giri went and visited for a few hours with the Salem-Keizer Coalition for Equality. It was an exceptional night, I thought. I provided a handout to all the board members at our last board meeting, and I think I
got one.
I know, I gave one to you. Did I give you one for Sharon? Did you get it, Sharon? I have one. I'll give you an extra. I have it here. I just want to say thank you for inviting us and for spending time with us and having great conversation and just building that relationship. I gave one to Superintendent Perry, and I don't know if it's possible. It would be great to get it out there because I think it's good information from them. The second thing is that I think it was the week before last. I feel like all my Thursdays have been in the last week. I had the opportunity to participate at the Gubser Elementary School ribbon cutting for the very first completed school bond project. And myself, Marty, and Satya were there for that. And it was exceptional. If you haven't had a chance to go online and look at some of the videos of what that expansion looks like and the fact that there's a cafeteria, a community space for those students to eat together and take a break from their classrooms, I encourage you to do that. Well done, Mike, on that. I think it's a great expansion. And then the third thing, I just want to say thank you to Superintendent Perry for bringing McKay and those students and Principal Schoper tonight. I think it's really important that we honor every student that makes the commitment to their education, and no matter how long it takes them through the summer courses to get that diploma, they have till the end of August, and I think it's exceptional, so thank you.
In addition to those fun items, I also was able to participate with Early College High School, their parent orientation night. For those of you that know me, my son would have gone to McKay, but he did go to Early College High School, so I've kind of adopted them as my other high school. So it was really nice to see all these new students coming in.
Trying to think. Sorry, it's been a long day. It's a little wet outside. I just want to say, well, first off, thank you to everybody at McKay High School and everybody who came here tonight. I thought that was the coolest thing ever, how we were able to, how those students, the teachers, and the parents were able to team up together and get these kids across the stage. So I think that's awesome. We have a lot to be proud of for that. And then also, every year I go to the new teacher orientation, meet a lot of our new teachers, so that's always a blast. This year, for some reason, they trusted me with a microphone, so that was interesting. But yeah, no, it was a great time, and I always like meeting our new teachers as they come on because for two reasons. One, it's because you get to see them and you get to meet them as they're transitioning from person who was in school and in the private sector usually into a role as a teacher, and so it's always I think that'd be such an interesting time of life to start a new career at Salem-Keizer, and so I always love meeting them, and I had a blast there. So that was that.
So this is kind of connected in a way, and I really enjoyed it. I was at my high school reunion this last weekend, and I'm not going to tell you which one it is. It's embarrassing. Just trust me, it's a big number. And we all graduated together from North Salem High School, and most of us from Parrish, and a good portion of us from Inglewood together. So their opinion of what we're going to do to North Salem High School, I wish you could all hear it word for word. So big changes. We've already made them once, but these turn North Salem High School into an equitable school. So it really modernized it, brought it up to date, and the comments I had were wonderful. So just let you know that much.
Thank you. So some of us had the honor to attend the SCEF Back to School Lunch today. That was really exciting because they introduced the new executive director, Kelly Carlisle, and Kelly really set the stage for moving forward for the organization, and they were very, very upfront with the challenges that that organization has experienced in the last year, and thank the staff for remaining committed, and thank the community, and a lot of accolades to the district for the partnership with SCEF, and the community, the community as a whole partnering. And I do sit on the board as a liaison, and it's been a fascinating year to see the challenges that they've gone through and what they've overcome. I would say they are much leaner now, and really, really taking a look at their, not just their expenditures, because that's really what got them in trouble, but what is the real mission of SCEF, and how do they contribute to the education and to the students in the community. So it was really great to hear how SCEF intends to move forward. And then also attending the COG meeting. So we heard from Sean O'Day. So we do have representation on the Council of Governments, and that organization does a lot of really great work in our counties and our communities. And so this the continuum of care going forward is really, really a game changer, I think, for this community. So it's great we get to see how that's proceeding. And then the other one that I want to mention, and this is a little trickier to chat about, but I was not at the last board meeting, but I certainly have had a lot of contact from members of the community who are concerned about what they heard, and we heard a lot of concerns raised here. So I just want to let folks know that we are listening, I'm listening, and I'm looking for additional ways to meet and be willing to listen, because as someone pointed out, that is our role. It's part of our job, is directors. And so I've been beginning to meet with students and groups to really hear what their concerns are. But I so much appreciate what was talked about tonight, making this stronger, not weakening it. And so I think that's what I've been hearing the last couple of weeks. But make no mistake, I've heard it, and I'm going to continue to listen. So I want folks to know that I'm an advocate, and I'm going to continue to listen.
Thank you very much. I want to appreciate Superintendent Perry and the school district. September 10th, today is World Suicide Prevention Day. And I really appreciate our Salem-Keizer School District to have this September as a Suicide Prevention Month in their website with some resources. And students from middle school and high school have behind their badge the mental health resources. It really ties in with everything what we heard and some of the challenges. So thank you very much. Little did I realize that it's such a beautiful, responsive board and superintendent. On the first board meeting, I didn't know what I was asking. I said, let's have a suicide prevention focus for a work session. And September 24th, you have already taken steps to have a work session focusing on suicide prevention, bullying, and it really ties in with a lot of topics. And so I really want to say that we have a wonderful, responsive board to the needs and such a flexible and adaptive board. So thank you, Superintendent Perry, for organizing it. I think the safety is going to be an underlying theme because without safety, without feeling of safety and a feeling of connectedness with school, we cannot assume educational outcomes are going to change. And the same feeling of connectedness, I believe, will also help our children feel safe, our students feel safe, and it can mitigate any potential mental health and suicide risk. So it's like, in a lot of ways, they tie in with a lot of these topics that we discussed today, feeling of safety, feeling that people do care about them, people do believe in them. So today's graduation ceremony was an example where the McKay staff truly felt they believed in those students, and we saw it can change the metrics. So thank you very much. And today being September 10th is the World Suicide Prevention Day, and this month is the one for Suicide Prevention Month. And thank you for having that work session in this month. So we'll be sending a very strong message that we do believe in all children, and they are our future. And so I will definitely advocate for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Satya. Christy, it's time for the superintendent's report.
All right, so I'm going to tie on to a couple things that Satya mentioned. If you didn't see the Genevieve story on the buses, it was very early in the morning, I must say that. But she tied it also into some of our suicide prevention efforts, so she pulled that into her evening newscast, which I was really appreciative of. Also, tonight on KPTV, Haley Brush sat down with one of our amazing McNary counselors to talk about what the district is doing to support students. And we'll also, at our work session, be bringing forward a Suicide Prevention Month proclamation because we thought it tied nicely with that. I think you've mentioned most of the other things. I've been out and about in lots of schools this past week, so we're off to a great start. We are hoping that we're doing some cleanup from some earlier flooding tonight. Mike's been, if he seems a little looking at his phone on a few things, we at one point were getting reports of about 17 schools that had experienced some level of flooding, and we're getting that taken care of, right, Mike? Okay. So
Good luck.
Yeah. Then I have two other things for you. One is we talked about work session topics, and I collected those. And so I'm going to give you a list, and I want you to, if you don't do it tonight, to sometime get to Alice, hopefully by the end of the week, your top 4 priorities, because we won't be able to do everything. And then The other thing I want to highlight is the Student Investment Account Task Force, and I'm going to give you the makeup of that. I do appreciate Mr. Schwartzendruber's comments on this, but what we are going to do is convene a task force that will really help us set the priorities, because one of the requirements is that we do deep listening with our underserved communities. And so what I've done is I've put together a task force that will be led by Adriana Miranda as a co-chair and Reginald Richardson, so they will co-chair this work. I think what we learned in our boundary review task force is that listening in our underserved communities looks very different than traditional ways of asking for input. So the task force is made up of a very diverse group. Both community educators will be on the task force. You notice I'm not putting myself on the task force. Cabinet level leaders will be staff to the task force. And part of what they're charged to do is to do intentional stakeholder engagement. So you can expect that we will do a number of listening sessions out, especially with our underserved communities. And you can also expect that if we don't get the turnout we want, we will think of different ways to reach out to them, just like we did with the Boundary Review Task Force. When you look at your equity lens and the piece about how does the decision build power in the underserved group, it really kind of helped me have some clear thinking around it. If you look at what we're asking this group to do, I think it's also an example of building power in our underserved groups as far as giving them voice to future decisions that we're making. The thing I would hope that you would ask is at every report, you'll look at our equity lens questions and ask some questions about it to be sure that we are really on track with how we are engaging our communities. And the plan has to specifically focus on improving outcomes for students of color, students with disabilities, students who are emergent bilinguals, students who are navigating poverty, homelessness, or foster care. And on this task force, we have representation of all of those groups. So we think it's about putting some power into our underserved communities and helping them tell us what could we do differently with the student investment account in order to improve outcomes for our kids. This is the current list of the people that have said yes. I've had a couple no's, and we have a couple still pending. And we have been working on the who to be invited with Adriana and Reginald. And I will tell you, they've pushed back on us a couple times in our first list. And so my first list was 25, thinking keeping it narrower. And they pushed back on no, broader representation is more important. So we came back around with some additional members for the team. So that's the Student Investment Account Task Force. I'll give you an update at each meeting of where we are and how it intersects with our SIP, as referenced in the testimony tonight, because they don't exactly match up because of the SIP has to be tied to our title funding. So our SIP is actually already approved, and we could do no more community engagement, but that wouldn't be the right thing around these dollars. So our process doesn't line up exactly with ODE's outline process because we're a district that already had to submit their school improvement plan because of our title funding is held up if we don't, and that's about $11 million. So that's our Student Investment Account Task Force, and I will put a report on every meeting for you to be updated on where we are. And when we have some of those focus groups, I'll ask for representations from the board to come and just be listeners. Yeah. There. So with that, that's it for me.
Any last minute question for Christy on that? Satya?
Thank you. Is this task force going to be like a standing committee which will continue to guide the board, or is it going to be a time-bound committee?
Currently, right now, it's time-bound, because they need to make recommendations to you as a governing body, and we're hoping to have those in December, because then we are needing to weave the priorities and recommendations into the budget process. So they'll do their work and hand it to the board and budget committee to actually approve the work, because legally you, along with the budget committee, are the only ones that can approve the expenditures. We might decide there's more to do with them afterwards, but for this specific task, it's going to be time bound.
Can I ask a follow-up question? So the reason I'm saying is, let's say they make a budget proposal and we incorporate it. How is the implementation plan going to be monitored by the communities and stakeholders? Because ultimately the success of Equity Lens is going to rest on how we implement it. So that is where I'm not sure how this, because with the Student Success Act and ongoing.
Yeah, I agree, and I know we need to have an implementation guide, and I think we might get some recommendations out of this committee about that, but right now I want them to focus on what are our current outcomes, what listening do they need to do.
Thank
you. Please take a moment tomorrow to remember what happened 18 years ago. Thank you to our first responders, our armed services members, veterans. We will never forget. We're adjourned.